Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. I'm really excited to be here today with Marjorie Tesser, editor of Mom Egg Review. In honor of upcoming Mother's Day, we're doing a series on Mama Lit Mags, and Marjorie is the first of this series. So thanks for coming out today. And how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy that you chose to focus on mother-centric literary mags. There aren't too many of us.
Yeah,
and we're doing important work in the world, and and we're each a little different too. So I really thank you for focusing on that.
Of course,
and for inviting me.
And thanks everyone for coming out. As always, if you have any questions, just go ahead and type them into the chat and we will work them into the conversation. And I just have to say also Marjorie's mother-in-law is in the audience, which I think is so super sweet and adorable in keeping with this theme. So let's jump right in. Marjorie, tell us about the origin story of your magazine.
Okay, so I did not invent the Mom Egg. The Mom Egg predated me. It was a project of Joy Rose, who had a mother-centric festival called Mamapalooza in the early 2000s. And it was a festival mostly of moms who rock. So there were, she was in a band called Housewives on Prozac, and there was a band called the Midolls, and there were lots of bands mostly, and also writers who were mothers and who felt that society expected them to be entirely self-effacing and give up their own personal selves for motherhood. And they still saw themselves as vibrant, creative beings and wanted to express their creativity. So Mom Egg, the first Mom Egg, I don't know if you can see it. This was it. It was a mimeographed, maybe 20-page collection of poems and lyrics from mothers who didn't want to perform, but still wanted to get their name out. So I joined the publication as a co-editor for issue 6. I became editor-in-chief at issue 9, and now we're up to our 20th annual issue.
Oh, wow.
So we've been in existence altogether 20 years. And through the years, we went from being the Mom Egg to being Mom Egg Review, and now we're pretty much using MER because it reflects sort of a broader focus that we're having now.
And when was the Mamapalooza happening?
I think it was like, well, all through the early 2000s. So 2003, 2004. Yeah, I think the first Mom Egg was 2003.
That's interesting. So even that late, moms were feeling that they still had this identity pressure to be kind of self-effacing and put their creative identities kind of on hold for other people.
Well, even today, we as people who are mothers face prejudice. People make assumptions about motherhood. Everybody feels they're an expert because everybody has had a mother. And we all see the TV moms and the the traditional religious mothers and cultural expectations that particular cultures have of motherhood. So there's a lot of expectation around the role. And of course, everybody fills the role in their own way. But there are still expectations that we have to combat.
Sure, of course. So I think of you and editors of similar magazines as sort of having your finger on the pulse of how moms are these days. I'm just curious, over the course of the pandemic, like, how are moms doing? Are you seeing a change in the kind of work that's coming out? Are people, more what are the moms expressing to you?
I'm listening to something. But can you
Well,
please change your shoes and
maybe if
Just,
everybody else could mute.
yes, we just need other people
wash
to
your hands,
mute. Make
change
sure
your
you're on
shoes.
mute, guys.
and I want you to set the table as well, okay?
Okay, now I forgot the question.
All right, we cleared that up. How are the moms doing? You know, like
Oh yeah, well,
sort
the
of like seeing-
pandemic
yeah.
has been, of course, traumatic for everyone, but particularly difficult for mothers who had to homeschool and also work from home often, who had the pressure of having unvaccinated children, possibly exposed to people who had the disease, who had to nurse and care for people who were ill and sometimes themselves became ill. So yeah, I mean, I think everybody knows how difficult the pandemic has been, but it's been particularly difficult for those with small children.
And are you seeing them in their work?
Yes, we are. We did do several we do literary folios on a quarterly basis online, as well as the print issue. And we did do several folios focused on various aspects of the pandemic. And people were pretty frank about how it was affecting them.
Yeah.
And, you know, there have been some blessings in disguise about the pandemic too. My daughter is a lawyer and she has 2 young children, and she was able to work from home, and she kind of liked that, as well as found it pressure and difficult because she got to spend more time with her kids.
Sure. So take us through your editorial process. What happens when a piece comes in? How do you discuss it? How do you weigh it? How do you make your decisions?
Okay, so we are a very small team. I edit fiction and prose for the most part, although I have now a new prose co-editor, J.R. Scott. And the poetry editors are Cindy Veach and Jen Martelli. We also have editors at large, J.P. Howard, who mostly works on online folios, and Anna C.H. Silva, who edits our gallery, which is art, and also is a poet. So, but speaking of submissions for the print issue, which is an annual, and submissions are currently open for that, so I'm quite attuned to it. Initially, the submissions are assigned to the particular genre editors. So Cindy and Jen will read every single poem, and I'll read every single prose piece. And we have a huge volume of submissions, but we're very disciplined, and we pride ourselves in reading full submissions. We don't read the first line and say, no, this isn't for us. We give it a chance. Because we're all writers, you know, and none of us is perfect, and none of us is always the most effective. And sometimes we get submissions from people who are new writers, but who have something very important to say. So we do give each piece its due, and read through. If something is clearly not about motherhood, totally off subject matter, then it will, of course, be declined. But we really read through everything before we accept, because we want to make sure, you know, we can only take a small amount of what we're offered for the issue. So we want to make sure we have the work that best represents our editorial vision for that particular issue.
And do you work with writers to make changes?
On a limited basis. We don't really have a lot of time to reshape a piece. If there's a small suggestion we might have for ordering, and of course, punctuation, formatting, we'll do that, and we will discuss it with the writer before we make any changes.
Okay.
But we don't really have the staff or ability to do intensive edits. And to be honest, most of the pieces we receive are pretty much ready to go. We have a wealth of pieces that are wonderful and that we have to choose from.
That's great. So would you say your goal for each issue is to publish the best work on motherhood, or a range of experiences, or ideally both? But if you're trying to decide, let's say you're trying to decide between two pieces, and they're both really great, but they cover similar territory, will you reject one in the hopes of trying to cover like more ground on the subject?
Yeah, that's true. Because unless we're doing a theme issue on a particular narrow area, we do try to present a range of not only experiences, but creative approaches, ideas. So yeah, we do try to balance the issues. So if there are two excellent poems on breastfeeding, say, that cover similar aspects of it, we may have to decline a perfectly wonderful piece. You know, we do have to make those hard decisions sometimes.
Yeah. And what would you say what is the experience that you want to have when you're reading a piece? Because I imagine you just mentioned breastfeeding, and I know so many people have there are so many issues that come up with breastfeeding. Like for so many women, it can be painful. I know so many people who tried to breastfeed and they couldn't, and it was very disappointing. It was really hard. So I'm curious, like, are you looking for that just like punch in the gut feeling when you read a piece? Are you looking to be, you know, exposed to something new, or just devastated, or just like really excited, or all of the above?
All of the above. I certainly value emotional content when it's well done and not sentimental, and when it is clearly portrayed. But I also love ideas, and I also love context. Our current issue is themed. We kind of alternate between the themed issue and just an open motherhood issue. And this year's issue is themed mother figures. So in it, our writers are thinking about how mothers are portrayed in the media, in religion, in culture, and how that jives with their own experiences. So a lot of this issue is not as much gut-wrenching as thoughtful and thought-provoking, and maybe controversial, you know, because not everybody believes the same thing. So yeah, I value the emotional and the intellectual. I value a creative approach, a fresh approach, a new way of looking at something. You know, when you're reading 100 or 200 or 1,000 poems on different aspects of motherhood, it's hard to say what makes one stick out. It's not always a gut punch. It could be something very subtle, but just that's extremely well expressed.
That's interesting. So let's cover the basics. You do poetry, fiction, nonfiction, and art. Am I missing? Okay. And so for the prose, all the prose needs to be under 1,000 words.
Yeah, we publish shorter pieces in the book. On the website, we have more leeway.
Oh, okay.
Because we do quarterly literary folios on the website. And sometimes they're fiction themed, sometimes they're all poetry, sometimes they're mixed genre. And we often have them selected by guest editors. So
Mhm.
that way we get different perspectives editorially as
Mhm.
well as with regarding creative work.
Mhm. So
So
the work on the
online, we can sometimes ask for longer prose pieces.
okay, but it's still in the 3,000 word range, is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah, you don't do much more than that. Okay. So for the print submissions, are you looking for flash, would you say, or just shorter works?
Well, both really. The word count total is
Mhm.
1,000, so it can be a story, a kind of a short story can easily be 1,000, or it can be shorter pieces that are more flash, or
Mhm.
1,000 word piece can be flash too, depending upon how you define it. There's flash that's like a Twitter length flash, and there's
Right.
500 word flash, and
Mhm.
so we've published all of those anywhere from 10 to 1,000 words of
Okay.
prose. And the only thing about the creative prose is that it's really creative prose. It's not just straight nonfiction. So it
Mhm.
wouldn't be like an article kind of thing or a how-to kind of piece. It's
Mhm.
more like a personal piece, more like memoir or nonfiction that reads like fiction.
Mhm. Okay. And you mentioned, since you're seeing so many submissions, you've read so many submissions over nearly 2 decades. What would you say are some common pitfalls about pitfalls in writing about motherhood? Are you seeing people, do people get too sentimental? Do they get too, do they leave out detail? What are certain things that people should know to not do when they're writing about motherhood?
Okay, well, I guess I think that most people who submit to us don't do these pitfalls because
Hmm.
they're, even if they're new writers, they're fairly sophisticated thinkers.
Hmm.
But someone told me a definition of sentiment is like where the writer feels it more than the reader.
Hmm.
Where the writer is talking about their own child and just loves them to pieces and their tiny toes and their teensy, yeah, okay. But communicate something to somebody else. It's not just, you're not just taking a photograph of your child.
Mhm.
You're communicating an idea or a feeling that you're experiencing or that you want to depict. So it's really the same as any good writing.
Mhm.
Specificity is greater,
Mhm.
it's often more effective than generalization. Nice action verbs are good.
Mhm.
Not too many adverbs, not too many diminutives like his teensy weensy, I'm not a sentimental person. None of our editors are Hallmark card kind of people. So,
Yeah.
and there's a place for that, I'm sure, but it isn't really what we're looking for.
It's
And
really
of
interesting.
course,
Yeah.
the biggest no is don't submit work that isn't about motherhood
Mhm.
if you're not a mother.
Mhm.
We have free submissions for the first week of each of our submissions period, and that is particularly aimed at allowing people to submit for whom even our $3 submittable fee would be, a barrier.
Mhm.
But there are people who see free submissions and just, kind of scattershot
Mhm.
whatever work they have out there. And it's a shame because we only get limited number of free submissions that we're allowed to offer.
Mhm.
And if a space is taken up by a guy writing about his war experiences, say, you know, that's one other mother poet who isn't going to get her work in for free.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say like read the guidelines and
Right.
it says motherhood all over the website. So
Right,
make it
right.
about
And that
motherhood.
includes somebody writing about their own mother, right? So
Yes, we
you don't have
publish.
to be, you don't have to have had kids to submit work.
Absolutely, you don't have to have kids. We've published really wonderful pieces by men writing about their mothers, whether positively or
Mhm.
negatively or critically. Our new issue has a really long poem by a 17-year-old girl about motherhood that is absolutely fantastic.
Mm.
We publish pieces about people who decide not to mother, you know, because we're interested in all the conversations around motherhood and mothering.
And that actually gets to, you were getting to a question that I had just on a craft level. I'm curious how to write about kids in a way that is fresh and not sentimental. This is something I'm sort of curious about in my own writing, because it's really difficult if you have kids, you know, your feelings sort of well up in the writing process, and it's very easy to slip into that, like, oh, they're silky little cheeks and they're, you know, nice white teeth and whatever. So it seems like a good approach would be to try to go for understated and downplay the kind of sweetness or funniness, you know, kids say the darndest things kind of approach. And just kind of be straightforward and understated and matter of fact, and let the reader kind of draw their own conclusions. I don't know. Do you have any tips for?
Yeah, I think that you know, I don't like the idea of show, don't tell, because I like telling in my own writing. But in terms of the cuteness and lovableness of your own children, it's easier for others to see if you actually show them the action rather than tell them what you're thinking about the action, unless the point is how much you love this person and you're exploring that. And that is certainly valid too. You know, emotions are fine. Loving your kids is fine. And there are certainly ways to celebrate that in literature. I guess it's like any other writing. I mean, you're not going to say his pearly teeth and his, you know, you're not going to use cliche. You're going to try to find a simile or a metaphor that's a little bit closer to the truth rather than the easy way of expressing something.
Right. Are there metaphors that you tend to see a lot of? And I'm asking because I remember I read, excuse me, I think it was American Pastoral by Philip Roth, and he was describing his daughter, and it was such a beautiful passage, and he described her little ears as like dried apricots. And I thought that was so perfect. And I was like, that is just genius, Philip Roth. And then I saw it again and I saw it again. And I was like, oh, maybe that's actually a pretty common comparison. So I'm wondering if there are things like that that maybe you see as editor, like, oh, this is a very played out metaphor. You might not realize it if you're a writer and it's coming to you for the first time, but actually this is something that a lot of people use, and maybe writers can know to dig a little bit deeper. Is there something like that that kind of comes to mind?
There's nothing in particular that's occurring to me. You know, it's like good art, bad art. You know it when you see it.
Right.
Like, yeah, I think most of the writers whose work we publish have found some authenticity in the way they express. And you know, it could be that in your first draft, you just write it off the top of your head, and there may well be cliches in your first draft. But then if you read through it and if you see something that, oh, well, yeah, I really have heard that a million times before, maybe you'll work on that particular thing and hone it a little bit more to be what you're trying to express.
Are there things that you are hoping to see more of in submissions?
I am excited to see different diverse experiences of motherhood.
Mhm.
Our initial submitters were sort of more middle-class moms.
Mm.
Maybe because those are the people who have the wherewithal to put time into writing.
Mhm.
And we've worked pretty hard to expand that so that we have different demographics represented.
Mhm.
Age-wise, economically, ethnicity,
Mhm.
you name it. So it's just exciting to me to read about different experiences of motherhood.
Mhm.
But there is also huge variety within similar demographics
Mhm.
because, as you know, everybody faces different challenges in their lives. There's no Donna Reed family in real life. You know, it's children are people, and they're complicated people, and they have
Mhm.
complicated needs, and
Mhm.
parents too are people. So yeah, no, I just, it's amazing to me how within a certain niche of subject matter, the amount of diversity and
Mhm.
newness I can find each time I read, each year I
Yeah.
read the submissions.
Yeah. Can you give an example of a piece that was recently published, maybe, or published, a few years ago that still stands out for you that was like this is why I am doing this work?
Eek. I can't because I really love every piece that we publish.
Yeah.
After the poetry editors read through all the poems, I read through all the poems, to see whether there's a different take that we might have. I love the pieces that talk frankly about the body and motherhood, sometimes in ways that would not get a lot of credence in mainstream publications. Mainstream publications are happy to publish a piece or two about motherhood,
Mhm.
but maybe not more than that.
Yeah.
And I can remember maybe 10 or more writers who told me that they have been warned by teachers or critique groups, oh, don't write that motherhood crap. Nobody wants to hear that mothery stuff. But people do want to hear that mothery stuff.
Sure.
I mean, this is a profound, multifaceted experience.
Mhm.
And nobody questions whether it's important for male writers to explore their feelings on the death of their dog or military service, but motherhood, which is basically, life and death all the time,
Sure.
and is a job that we never retire from, really, because nurture is an ongoing need, and because our society does not really support those who nurture.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't pick one particular thing because they're all amazing.
That's great. Why do you think young writers would be getting that message to sort of not write about that motherhood crap? Do you think it I can think of a lot of reasons why. I mean, obviously it's just like straight up sexism, but there's also this idea that you're sort of limiting your writing to the domestic space in some way. If you want to be a great writer, you need to write about big global, political issues and things beyond the home. So do you have any sense of like why writers might be getting that message?
I think that that's why. I
Yeah.
think that that's why. I think there's a bias against the domestic
Mhm.
and toward the large scale
Yeah.
kind of thing in terms of ascribing it importance.
Mhm.
But you know, the domestic is important. Freud thought the domestic was important.
Sure.
A lot of things think the domestic is important
Mhm.
and is the basis for some of these global events.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know, each of these participants in global events was a child once who was raised by parents, and that impacted on how they carried out the rest of their lives. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I think there's part of it is sexism because there's a squeamishness about women's bodies
Mhm.
and you know, menstruation and breast milk and
Mhm.
women's sexuality.
Mhm.
You know, society still has antiquated notions. They're not
Mhm.
gone.
Yeah. Do you see
So,
that changing? Because I see maybe in the past, certainly in the past decade, maybe in the past 5 years, like so many memoirs about motherhood, and it seems like a new, it seems like an area people are much more open to talking about and publishing about, especially also postpartum depression is something that people
mhm.
are talking more about. So do you see it changing, and that like writing mentors are becoming more encouraging of young writers to explore this?
Well, certainly, yes, yes.
Mhm.
I think it's a wonderful thing that different experiences of motherhood are being published, and some of them are not all roses and flowers. And
Yeah.
you know, you could read Rachel Cusk and have a really interesting view of motherhood from her and from a lot of other people who are writing their own truths about motherhood.
Mhm.
And I think it's all to the good.
Mhm.
That we embrace the actuality of human experience and take it from there.
Yeah. And how are people, how are the writer editor moms that you know balancing? I mean, I think that's like the age old question, right? Is how do you do the dance? How do you, you know, juggle all the things, the work, the kids, the writing work? Are people, you know, are they doing okay? Are
Well,
people like falling apart? What's going on?
all of the above. You know,
Yeah.
everybody's journey is different.
Hmm.
Some people are able to fit in their creative work while the kids are small. Uh, there's a wonderful group of writers and artists who actually incorporate their children into their art making.
Mm.
So there's an artist, Megan Wynn, who takes photographs with her children. Um, we collaborate with the Motherhood Foundation and an art group called the Procreate Project. And we publish on our website work of mother artists who actually use their motherhood as a source for their own creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are artists who detail the amount of breast milk each day that they,
Wow.
who do kind of quantitative projects,
Mm.
really interesting focuses on aspects of motherhood.
Mhm.
And there are writers also. Nicole Davis has worked with her kid on writing.
Mm.
So some mother artists and writers are adept at that. When my kids were little, I didn't write publicly at all.
Mm.
I fitted into my little times when I wasn't doing childcare or working at my regular job. And I didn't really start publishing until my kids were grown.
Mm.
So there are different timelines, and
Yeah.
everybody sort of works out what they can work out.
Mhm.
There are now organizations that support parents who write, like there's Pen Parentis, which is an organization that's has a fellowship for parent writers. Other places have fellowships for parent writers. We try to support parent writers by giving free workshops, or we had a February flash event where we put up a flash prompt every single day for a month by established writers, and people could do that. So yeah, I think everybody kind of works out what they can, and nobody has immense luxuries of time to do their work, and everybody has to fit it in somehow.
Yeah, the Sustainable Arts Foundation is also another good one for people who want to apply. I think you need to have a kid under 10 to apply, but they give grant funding. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
So did you know during that period when you weren't writing, did you know this is temporary, I'm going to get back to writing soon enough, or was it kind of an agonizing experience for you? And I'm asking because there may be, although maybe not because they're they're really busy, but there may be people watching this or tuning in later who have young kids and just feel like, am I ever going to get back to writing or get into writing? Am I ever going to have the chance to take it seriously, to become a professional writer? Or if I stop writing for 2-3 years and focus on the diaper changing, is that it for me? What's going to happen?
Well, I didn't find it frustrating because I kept writing. I just wasn't trying to share it with anybody. And it wasn't my career. I was a lawyer, and then I was a business owner. And I wrote for my own pleasure, for my own way of working through things I was thinking about.
Right.
Once I had more leisure, that was how I decided to focus my time. And I ended up taking a class that led to my working as an editor for Bowery Books and editing poetry books. And that kind of got me back into the literary field. And also gave me confidence that people liked my writing, wanted to publish my writing. It's risky to put your writing out there when you don't know how it's going to be received. But if you get a little bit of positive feedback, that can go a long way.
Sure.
And once I found a writing community, that made it easier for me to write. And I think that that's what I would advise people who want to be able to devote more time to their writing or want to be able to develop their writing, is to find some writing community, whether to take a class or find some local people who also like to write, or if there's a poetry reading, you can connect with people there. And then you have a deadline. So then you have something to shoot for rather than just, well, when I can fit it in, because there's always temptations to do other things.
Right. So did you know that you wanted to transition at some point to a professional writer, editor career, or did that just kind of happen organically?
That happened really organically. I was editing for Bowery Books while I was running my business, and I did both. And I co-edited 2 anthologies that I'm really proud of, and also the individual poetry books of a lot of people. And also started doing my own writing at that time, and publishing my own poetry books. And so yeah, it happened really organically. The more I did it, the more I enjoyed it, and the more of my time I was able to devote to it. Again, my kids were older then, so I had fewer of those kind of
Mhm.
immediate daily demands. And now it's just sort of organic. It's just the way I live. That's
Great. What would you say to a writer? This is sort of the opposite situation where they're being told not to write about motherhood. What would you say to a writer who maybe feels like they don't have anything fresh to say about motherhood? Everything, there's so much writing on it. There's so many memoirs now. There's so many essays, so many blogs and resources, all this stuff. So what about a mother who feels like I don't know what to say about this experience, but I know I want to write about it, but I don't know what is fresh that I can contribute.
Well, I think don't worry about publication. I think start with what you want to say, what you want to remember, what you want to notice that's going on in your life. And it might not even be what's contemporaneous. I have, there's a wonderful prose writer who I work with. She's in her 90s and she's a Pulitzer nominee. I have the utmost respect for her. And she was asked at the beginning of the pandemic, are you going to write about the pandemic? And she said, maybe in 5 years, I'll write about the pandemic.
Right.
Sometimes having a bit of perspective on something can help you write about it. It can be something that you're right in the thick of and you just want to get it down, what's happening. But the other thing is that it doesn't have to be a finished piece. It could be notes, it can be a phrase, it can be a moment, and you can always then knit those pieces into a quilt later. So yeah, don't worry about whether it's cliche. Just worry about what you want to say and what you're thinking about, because your thoughts are important and your reactions are unique.
Yeah.
There are so many iterations of any particular experience that it is, of course, possible to be unique.
Yeah. I relate to that a lot, that feeling that you can't write about something when you're in it. Like sometimes I tell my dad a funny story about something my daughter said or did, and he says, oh my God, you should write about that. But it's so much all around you that it's hard to see it clearly. So I think, I guess the converse would be to tell writers, you don't necessarily have to write about motherhood too. If you're knee deep in it, you're in the mom weeds in a particular point in your life, don't feel like you have to only write about that experience.
Yeah, write about what you're interested in. Maybe the best thing to do is not to focus on your kids, but to think about something else that you're really passionate about. Or something that you're trying to puzzle out about human behavior, or something that you see that you can't unsee.
Yeah.
And so you have to process it on the page. And whether or not it becomes something for publication, it's valuable for you.
Right.
To process things.
Yes, in here.
With a regular fork or the one with the red?
Oh,
The red.
I'll bring it in.
There's a mom-in-law interruption. I'm trying to.
Iris, put yourself on mute.
Yeah, I have the water.
Oh. I can't see this. So is there any opportunity for people to get more involved with the magazine? If they
Absolutely.
become readers, assistants, interns, anything like that?
Well, yes. We are going to be opening up some positions for reading and for social media, community engagement, kind of things. But the easiest way, and also the way that's the best way you can contribute to literature, would be to write a book review for us.
Oh.
We publish reviews of books by mother writers, or of books that focus on motherhood or aspects of women's lives. literary books, not like how-to books. And we have a number of books on our list that are available for review, or if someone reads something new that they're passionate about, they can write a review and submit it to us.
Mhm.
And that's really one of the important ways that we support women writers, is by helping them publicize their books, especially in this pandemic time when people can't be doing book tours so easily and can't get the word out.
Mhm.
It's very valuable for them to have a review. And it's also great for our readers to see, of all the books that one can read, what is there out there that sounds like it would be just the thing.
Mhm.
So we have a review email called merreviews@gmail. So if anyone is interested in writing a review for us, the first step would be to email us and just let us know that you're interested.
That's great. Thank you. And you do a lot of other things for writers as well. You do readings and workshops.
We do readings and workshops. Yeah, we haven't done a workshop in a little while. We're planning one for next year.
Mhm.
We have 2 readings coming up that are launch readings for our latest issue. This is
I love the cover.
latest issue. The cover is by Michelle Gallagher, who I think might actually be here. Who's an amazing artist. And it was just the perfect cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have 2 readings coming up. One, oh, there she is. Beautiful work. Yeah, June 2nd, which is a Thursday evening, and then June 5th, Sunday afternoon.
Nice.
We're having 2 Zoom readings.
Mhm.
People can get free tickets via Eventbrite, and all the info will be on our website. And we would love to have people come and listen to it. So our readings have always historically been wonderful community events.
Mm.
Used to always have a reading in New York City, either at Poets House or Poisson Rouge or someplace cool. And we'd have a large number of readers very quickly read from the issue, and it's always been fabulous. For the past couple of years, we've gone virtual, and this year, after thinking about it, we're still virtual. Hopefully in the future, we can be in person for some things.
Sure. But it's nice because then you can get writers from all over. The world.
Yes, that's the upside, is that Margot Berdyshevsky can join us from Paris, and someone else can join us from LA, and it's really one of those silver lining kind of experiences.
We have a quick question here. Could you please repeat the email address for the book reviews?
Okay, I'll type it in the chat. It's merreviews@gmail.com. And if you go to our website, to the book reviews section, you can also see an idea. We publish shorter reviews, 750 words. So it's not onerous to write one. It's not like writing a dissertation or anything. It's just giving people an idea of where in the lineage this book appears, especially with poetry, like what kind of work it is, and what one could expect and who might like it.
And for your workshops, are those exclusively for mother writers, or can they be for anyone?
Well, we haven't formulated the new one. In the past, we've had workshops that were taught by mother writers, but they were open to anyone to come. So it would have to be someone who was interested in the topic of writing about motherhood, because that is often the focus of the workshop.
Sure. And we actually have two more questions here about the book reviews. One is, can we submit reviews that have already been published on a personal blog? So the review's
Okay.
already done, it's appeared on the person's blog. Can they submit it to your magazine?
If it's been published, we generally don't. We publish, if you go to the website, you'll see the type of books that we are interested in
Mhm.
having reviewed. And we have guidelines for our reviews. So it would have to adhere to our guidelines. It would have to be about a recent book published within the last year, because we just get too many to go too far back. We have too many contemporaneous ones.
Mhm.
And we also have a list of books available for review if someone is willing to take on a project and read something new.
Mhm.
We send you the book, you read it, you write it, and we publish the review.
Great. And I
Any
saw
questions?
there's
just
a
email
hand
me.
raised here by Doris. Let's see. Doris.
It might be inadvertent.
Okay. So actually, just a question for the workshops. Do you have any like great writing prompts that you can share? If there's someone watching this and is like, I just have this hunger. It's like this creative hunger, the creative force to, I want to write about this experience. There's so much I have to say about being a mom, about having a mom, about motherhood. But I don't know where to begin. Do you have a few kind of suggestions to get things rolling for this?
Yeah, well, on our website, I'm just trying to pull up the the link so I can post it in the chat.
Oh, great.
Yeah, here we go. Okay, we, as I mentioned, I think a little earlier, in February, we did a February flash event in which we had 28 days of prompts, of writing prompts.
Oh, that's great.
And some of them are ekphrastic, some of them are visual prompts, some of them are fairly detailed, and some of them are very brief. And we had done that once before. So I think we have like 56 prompts up on our website that could be accessed at that link. So you can just kind of go in there and click around and see if there's something that sparks your imagination, or just assign yourself one and do it to the best of your ability.
Mhm.
And the great thing about writing from prompts is it's like practicing scales. You get better the more you write. So whether or not you're writing about motherhood, or, it could be that this is asking you to write about something totally different, but it still exercises those muscles
Mhm.
and accesses that part of your creative brain
Mhm.
that'll make it easier next time. So yeah, I encourage everybody to dip into there. There's a lot of wealth there.
That's great. And just a sort of closing question, though this might be kind of a big question, is like, why do you think it's so important to have a magazine dedicated to motherhood?
Well, because it's such an important experience.
Mhm.
I found motherhood tremendously affected me as a human being. It
Mhm.
affected the way I looked at the world. It certainly affected the course of my life and my priorities and what I was able to do and my aspirations. And thinking about children made me think about the world differently and our experience here and what we can do to keep the world going. So I think that motherhood is a really important and rich source for literature. And there were very few mother publications. You found 4 or 5 of us.
Mhm.
Some of them are mostly nonfiction. I think only Literary Mama, and we publish all the genres at the moment.
Mhm.
There have been lovely mother publications that have expired.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's important. I think it's an important part of life. It's important as far as equal rights for women go, to have our experiences be out there in literature.
Mhm.
And I feel validated because our audience has grown and grown over the years. And people other than mothers read us and contribute to us. But, you know, for the most part, we are exist in service and in validation of mothers who work really hard and who are fabulous human beings, creative and wonderful, and deserve to have their vision put forth.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for coming. It's
Yeah.
lovely to see you.
And we have a
on this,
recommendation from Michelle to check out the international Scottish-based group Spilt Milk Gallery.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I second that. And for other mother writers to check out on our website, the area called MAMA, M-A-M-A, Mothers Are Making Art. And that's where we have collaborations between visual artists chosen by Procreate Project and our own literary artists. So we pair a visual artist with a writer and focus on them.
Yeah, that's great. And people, do you have a newsletter that people can subscribe to?
We do. And please, we'd love you to sign up. You can sign up right on the website. A little annoying pop-up will come up and invite you. Just sign up. We don't spam you. We send out maybe 2 newsletters a month.
Okay. Unlike mine, which is sort of relentless.
I love getting yours because there's always something interesting in there.
Thanks. And on Twitter, people can find you at
Twitter and Insta, we're MER Literary.
Okay.
On Facebook, where also MER Literary is our Facebook page. We also have a Facebook group you can join to let people know about your own work if you have a publication or if you're reading somewhere. If you go to our website, you can see the links for all of those.
Nice.
And yeah, join us on all those social things.
Great. Actually, and one more question. Mama, is that correct for the pairing of the art?
Yeah, MAMA, Mothers Are Making Art.
Okay.
And it's under features on our website. If you go to MER Online and where am I? Gallery, it would be in the gallery.
Okay. Oh, we have a comment.
I'm in the process of redoing the website, so.
Oh, okay. There's a comment, one more comment from Lynn, that it's a great community, love the readings, and lately there was a review of her first book, so that's fabulous. Congratulations.
I'm so happy to see you, Lynn. And yeah, and that's one of our really something that I really enjoy about it is that sometimes we've published people at the very beginning of their writing career and then seen how they develop and how their work gets out into the world. And it's really wonderful. I have a whole shelf of books that are of authors who first published in MOMEG and now, you know, are well known in their field. So,
oh, that's awesome.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, thanks for all you do, and thanks for taking the time today. And thank you guys for coming out.
Yes, thanks everybody, and great to see you. Thank you, Becky, so much.
My pleasure.